All right. So, what do we do this for? I get that point a lot when I describe this. They say, well, why? What's the point? Now, the points that I've encountered, first of all, are underscored by the love and enjoyment of the medium as such, the fascination with how it's done, and the personal quality of how it works well with any particular group of people. Those can be very engaging, and pound for pound, that's where everybody's priorities seem to be in terms of observation. They're engaged in getting out of it the sound, the prospective prose that it sort of is like, the plot, if you will, of what happens. The fact that you're making this at all, engaging with your instrument in, let's say, superficially a character sheet, and then changes occur on it. So that would seem like the point, except that, as I say, those are all just aspects of the medium. The point is, what are we here to do with it? The interesting thing about saying, why do you do it? We're not talking about in your heart of hearts for yourself. We're talking about why you're doing it with these people, which means appreciation in this purpose, participation in this purpose, admiration for your participation, and vice versa, are all involved. So when I talk about why to do this, I'm not talking about why do you do it. I'm just saying, why do we, this group, what are we getting out of it? Where's the charge of being happy about having done this with these people at this time in this way? Now, of those that I've observed in the most general sense, one of them is very similar to the practice of athletic sports, which is often competitive or at least performative in terms of it might not work. You might not have done that well at it, but you can not do so well at it and still honorably, with appreciation from everybody involved, even if it's competitive, appreciation from the individual who outcompetes you. So these are all one way to do it. That could be in thousands of different manifestations in terms of procedure. Somewhat more common, I think, has a lot to do with our enjoyment of fiction as stories. So we're interested in characters in terms of identifying with them. We're interested in consequences of their efforts, and of the consequences of incomplete information. In many cases, this person knew this person knew that, and the way those actions, their consequent actions, collided in some fashion, or interacted and had some interplay with other situations in some fashion, produced a unique outcome, that we have feelings about these outcomes. We can feel sad in an audience sense. We can feel the curious charge of being the person who determines in some fashion, constrained by procedures perhaps it's your job to say, being the person who has determined that this character has met a tragic fate, either in terms of what they wanted in the moment or maybe even permanently for that character, that a creator feels. I mean, that's something we don't really investigate very much, is what does it feel like to be the author of something, and when you did know how it's going to turn out for that character versus the moments beforehand when you didn't know. Experiencing that as a social event is profound, actually. So when you approach the fiction in this sense and do not treat it actually as a playwright or a screenwriter or a novelist or even a film director or theater director, you are not actually producing product for others, and you are not actually isolated in this. There are procedures and there are things that are going to surprise you and things that have changed up on you, no matter who you are at the table. And so, therefore, the enjoyment of this in that thematic sense is easy to access when agency is present for everybody, when the authorities are understood as to who has them and about what throughout play, which may be a shifting thing, and when the understanding of what, the understanding, not prearranged understanding so much, but the practical, applied understanding as we go of what is and isn't in our story. And then finally, the embrace of the constraining and bouncing procedures that we use in critical circumstances. All of those have a particular capacity for enjoyment in the construction of these prior unknown, fictional outcome. So I spent a lot of time talking about that because we don't really have a good vocabulary for it from other media. But those two purposes, which are incompatible because a group is what I'm talking about, what we want is a group understanding, and even it doesn't have to be a verbal understanding, certainly not an agreed upon one beforehand, but a practiced, a working understanding of shared purpose of one of these two kinds is what I've observed to have produced the most specific and authentic enjoyment of what we do.